Hello and welcome again. Today we are going to talk about the god Baal or Baal. The Bible makes us to believe that Baal is a false god, while Yahweh or Jehovah is the true God. Is that true? Is Baal a false god, or is he the arch enemy or nemesis or arch rival of Yahweh or Jehovah? Stay tuned. So, who is Baal or Baal? Now, Baal is or was, if you like, a preeminent god in Canaan, in Middle East area, in the ancient world. He was one of the prominent, in fact, after the god El, the supreme god in the Canaanite pantheon. Baal was the second most important. Now, this Baal was, of course, the son of the god El and the goddess ASHERAH, whom we've covered in previous videos. You may want to look at the links to see the videos on El and ASHERAH. So, Baal actually means Lord or Master. So, which means it's the same name as Adonai that is used for Yahweh or Jehovah. So it's Lord or Master. Is the god of rain, god of storm, god of fertility. He's also the sun god, basically Lord of the heavens. And so he controls the heavens, controls rain, controls storm, thunder, and lightning. All these are attributes of the god Baal. And ultimately, this Baal became so prominent in worship across Middle East, including Israel, that he took the place of the god El or Elohim as the main god, basically, that people call upon every day, and the husband of the goddess ASHERAH. Now, there were different local Baals as well, different local lords across Israel and across Middle East. The worship of Baal was very, very, very widespread in Canaan and in Israel. So, the worship of Baal as the preeminent god in Canaan could be seen in the fact that throughout Israel, Baal was worshipped by everybody. Kings, commoners, elders, everybody worshipped Baal. And at the same time, ASHERAH. Numbers 25, 3-4. Numbers 25, 3-4. Now, this is shortly after the Jews had arrived to the so-called Promised Land from Egypt, and they already were neck deep in the worship of Baal away from Israel. Kill all the people. All the leaders were worshiping Baal, which means this Baal is God they knew from Egypt, and they knew in Canaan, and they were all following that Baal. From the very beginning, they worshipped Baal. Judges 2:10-5. So it says, the generation of Moses and Aaron, immediately they died, because they used iron hand and force and death, threats of death, intimidation, to maintain the worship of their own God, Yahweh. Once they died, the guys were free. And where did they go? They went after Baal. They loved Baal. They loved Asherah. Judges 3:7. The people of Israel did what Yahweh considered evil. They forgot Yahweh their Elohim and served other gods and goddesses, the Baals and the Asherahs. All the people, all of them, abandoned. They forgot Yahweh and served Baal and Asherah. 2 Kings 17:16. The Israelites abandoned all the commands of Yahweh their Elohim. They made 2 calves out of cast metal. They made a pole dedicated to the goddess Asherah. They prayed to the entire army of heaven. They worshipped Baal. They worshipped Baal. They abandoned all the commands of Jehovah and went after Baal. 1 Kings 18:18. I have not made trouble for Israel, Elijah replied, but you and your father's family have. You've abandoned Yahweh's commands and have followed the Baals. This is Elijah talking to Ahab, King Ahab. You've abandoned Yahweh, Jehovah, and you followed Baal with everybody else. 2 Kings 21:3. He, King Manasseh, set up altars dedicated to Baal and made a pole dedicated to the goddess Asherah, as King Ahab of Israel had done. So both in Israel, northern kingdom, and in Judah, southern kingdom, everybody, the kings, the people, worshipped Baal and Asherah. 2 Chronicles 28:1-4. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to rule. He ruled for 26 years in Jerusalem. He did not do what Yahweh considered right, as his ancestor David had done. This king followed the way of other kings, all of them. He says, apart from David, this guy and all the kings worshipped Baal. They worshipped Asherah. So it was a notorious point that throughout the kingdom of Israel and Judah, the people were obsessed with Baal. They loved Baal. So which means it was a major god. Yeah? Now, the fact that everybody in the land of Israel worshipped Baal could be seen from the fact that many names of people in Israel have Baal in it. For example, and I'm talking of people, prominent people, yeah, the ancestors of Israel. Example, there was a guy called Baal, directly, no messing about. This Baal was a descendant of Aaron, Reuben. Reuben was the first son of Jacob, or Israel. And a descendant of his was called Baal. 1 Chronicles 5:5-6. 1 Chronicles 5-6. This a son of King Saul. King Saul was the first king of Israel. His son was called Ishbaal. Ishbaal, which means man of Baal. 1 Chronicles 8:33, 1 Chronicles 9:36. Eventually they became embarrassed and began to change his name in different translations to call them Ishbosheth. Ishbosheth was the name that was previously Ishbaal, man of Baal. There was a Meribbaal, son of Jonathan. Now Jonathan was the son of King Saul, so a son of Jonathan, who was son of Saul, the king, was called Meribbaal. Meribbaal. There was 1 Chronicles 8:34. There was also Jerubbaal, which is a name for Gideon, one of the judges of Israel. Gideon was also known as Jerubbaal. Judges 6:32. In fact, there was a place, one of the men called, who fought with King David at Ziklag in 1 Chronicles 12:5. His name is called Baalia or Belia, which means Yahweh is Baal. Yahweh is Baal. So, Baal was also referred to as Baal Berith. Baal Berith, which means Lord of the Covenant. Lord of the Covenant. Now remember, these two last names, Baalia, is very significant because remember that Yahweh, Adonai, was supposed to be the God that made a covenant with Abraham for the people of Israel. Now, they're telling us that Baal is Jehovah. And they're telling us that Baal is the Lord of Covenant. Baal Berith, which means probably Baal and Yahweh are the same people. Now it will seem that this Baal, far from being an idol, far from being a false god, is actually a very mighty God. Mightier, stronger, more powerful than Jehovah or Yahweh, whom the Bible tells us is the true one, the true God. It will seem that this Baal was more dominant, stronger, more powerful. So this Baal was worshipped throughout the land of Canaan, basically in the ancient Middle East, including ancient Babylon, including Syria, including everywhere in the Middle East. Baal was worshipped there. On the contrary, the only place we know about Yahweh's worship in the Bible and in the ancient times was in the land of Israel. And remember, the Israelites were the ones who usurped Canaan. They came into Canaan. And this Baal was the god of Canaan, the entirety of Canaan, including Israel. As a matter of fact, if you go to Syria today, the remnants of a huge temple of Baal in Palmyra is still there today. And that site is a UNESCO World Heritage Center. To tell you how dominant his worship was. Then you remember the context of Elijah and the prophets of Baal and Asherah in 1 Kings 18. Verse 19, it says to the king Ahab, "Summon the people all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah." Jehovah, Yahweh, had won. Baal 450. Asherah 400. So who is superior? 1 or 850? Because of the dominance of Baal That was why Yahweh is very jealous of him. Very jealous of him. And throughout the Old Testament, the jealousy of Yahweh was burning. His anger was born at the people because of what? Baal. Baal. He wouldn't be jealous of Baal if Baal was an idol without power, or was a useless, a small, tiny god of no consequence, or if he was insignificant, then Yahweh would not be angry or jealous of him. He was jealous because this Baal was the preeminent God, and of whom people of Israel followed. And therefore in Deuteronomy 17:25, Deuteronomy 17:2-5, there was this commandment: anybody that worships any other god, especially Baal and Asherah, or tells people to worship them or to bow down to them, he says they must be brought out and stoned to death. So basically, Baal was very powerful, was very dominant, was very prevalent, was very much loved by the people, and therefore Yahweh was very angry. And throughout the Old Testament, the prophets kept crying, wailing, the prophets of Yahweh, that the people are worshiping Baal all over the place. Jeremiah, Hosea, Zephaniah, numerous chapters and verses. The prophets of Jehovah have cried because the people were all following Baal. So apparently, Jehovah or Yahweh could not compete with Baal. And this is what the Bible makes clear. He couldn't compete. And therefore he made a law banning private worship. Well, these are followers of Jehovah. Moses and his followers, they prescribed the worship of Baal and Asherah and other deities at the pain of death. What happened to freedom of worship and conscience? If you worship Baal and Asherah, why are you fighting for Jehovah? Why don't you leave him to fight his battles? So he couldn't compete fairly. Therefore, there was throughout the Old Testament a bloody attempt, or there were bloody attempts to eradicate the worship of Baal by force, by killing, by murder, by arson. Judges 6:25-26, destroy the worship places of Baal that your fathers have built, and build a different one for me instead. 2 Kings 11:17-18. King Jehoiada made a promise to Jehovah on behalf of the king and his people. They went on rampage, destroying Baal's altars and killing his priests. Why are you using violence to enforce your worship? If you are the true God, Yahweh, they tell us, why couldn't he show his power by proving to the people that he is the God? Why are you destroying people, killing people, murdering people? 1 Kings 18:40. After the encounter of Elijah and the prophets of Baal and Asherah on Mount Carmel, according to the Bible, Elijah says, 1 Kings 18:40, seize the prophets of Baal, don't let any of them escape. The people seized them, and Elijah took them to the Kishon River and slaughtered them there. Imagine the bloodshed. 850 people slaughtered. For doing what wrong? Freedom of worship. They were just worshiping as they see fit. So why kill them? Isn't that terrorism in the name of religion? the type we are seeing today. I don't like your God. I don't like your worship. 2 Kings 9, 10, and 11. 2 Kings chapters 9, 10, and 11 details the murderous rampage of King Jehu. Went about killing, slaughtering, killed King Joram of Israel, King Ahaziah of Judah, killed 70 sons of Ahab, killed the priests and worshippers of Baal, and destroyed the temples and worship places of Baal. What is their offense? Worship. And this guy embarks on a terror campaign, slaughtering people, sons of Ahab, worshippers, priests, for doing what? For worshipping as they think fit. That is religious terrorism. 2 Kings 23:4-7 and 23:14. So King Josiah, a Yahweh's king, he comes and begins to destroy all the worship things associated with Baal and Asherah. You will notice there is no place where the kings that worship Baal and Asherah went about killing people that worshiped Yahweh. They let them be. They worship both Asherah, both Baal, and Yahweh. Everybody live and let live. But Yahweh's people, no. Kill everybody, destroy everything, burn out everything. Religious terrorism. But despite all these acts of terror, brigandage, arson, murder, slaughter, the people remain faithful to Baal and Asherah. They persisted. And the Bible says, because of this persistence, that Jehovah was angry with the people, and he allowed them to be defeated by the Babylonians and taken into exile. If you go to 2 Kings 24-25. But that seems to me to be disingenuous. If you look at it, King Josiah had in 2 Kings 23 embarked on a reform, killing prophets, priests, burning stuff, to restore the worship of Yahweh to the land. Despite all this, Yahweh allowed them to be defeated and killed and taken into exile. A more realistic explanation is that Baal and Asherah got angry with Josiah and the people of Israel for killing his prophets or their prophets and destroying their worship places, and decided to punish them by allowing them, or by, don't forget, Babylon that destroyed Israel and Judah, they worshiped Baal. It was Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, who was a worshipper of Baal, that defeated the Jews, the Israelites, and took them into exile. That shows that the god Baal of Babylon was stronger than the Baal that the one worshipped by the people of Israel. Remember, in those early times, people fought with their own gods, because when the Jews won the battle, they would say that their God made them win. So in this case, the god of Babylon, Baal, apparently defeated the god of Josiah, Yahweh or Jehovah. What is the moral of the story? What can we take from this? The truth is, it is bigotry, religious bigotry, that leads people to claim that their own is the true God and others are false gods. And therefore, they call them pagan, they call them idolatrous, they call them demonic, they call them unbelievers, they call them infidels. This is bigotry. Because nobody really knows what God. Nobody can tell you God is like this or like that. And people worship God the way they understood. And freedom of worship requires that you let people worship as they see fit. You don't go and start killing people for worshiping the way you don't like. That is not your business. That is terrorism. Who the hell was Yahweh? After all, it was the Israelites who borrowed the god El as their own, when El was the god of Canaan, and Baal was the son of El. So if anything, if anybody is fake or false, it will be Yahweh, because he was an appendage to the Canaanite. Are you with me? Or at very best, he and Baal were brothers, and both the sons of Elohim. In which case, who is false and who is not false? This is the same way Christian missionaries and Islamic jihadists who came to Africa claimed that the gods of Africa were idols, were demons, were stones, were wood, were rubbish, and began to destroy and kill our people, and then brought their own gods or idols for us to worship. Because if ours were idols and stones, theirs also were idols and stones. It's in the eyes of the beholder. Nobody can tell you that their God is better than yours. It depends on their understanding of deity. What is good for a particular people is good for them. Let them be. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, I'm sure you like it. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel and share the message around. Let people know the time of deception has passed. Everybody should open their eyes and learn the truth, and the truth shall set them free.